All right, quick little video here about our cylinders. All right, I'm gonna keep this guy nearby. So this is all about just making sure that you make your circles the right size, because that's sort of a trick. I mean, not a trick, but it's sort of the most important part here. So let's say that I was making a cylinder just like this one. All right, so I wanted it to be 1, 2, 3, 6, so 6 meters, whatever my story calls for, 6 meters, 6 centimeters, doesn't matter, 6 kilometers by 3, okay? So I can go ahead and design that right here, and I mean, this is what I did in GeoGebra. And there's no sort of tricks that just because it's GeoGebra, oh, this is happening.
Due to the downpour outside, as everybody in the students said this morning, same rules as usual, 8:40.
Yep.
Anyone who is in a portable can go to the gym. All others line up outside the classrooms. Teachers, you have the option to bring them into the class if you wish.
No way.
And leave them in the hall if you have other things to do.
That one.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so this is what I want my cylinder's rectangle component to be. I want it to be 6 by 3. You know, that's going to be 18 units squared. But now I need to make the circle, okay? So you can't just sort of just draw a circle. I mean, you can, but when it comes to making your actual net for actual marks, you need to consider how large it would be. So you can't just, like, you know, decide, oh, you know what, the diameter is going to be 5 just because I feel like it. I mean, that's not necessarily going to work. In fact, it's not. Because remember, I need to make sure that my circumference of the circle is the exact same length of that side of the rectangle of my cylinder, right? Because when I fold them, it needs to be a perfect match. Otherwise, I'm not making a cylinder, I'm making some other weird solid of some variety. Okay, so when I made this one in GeoGebra, I had to do math. Imagine that. So what you're going to want for this is a calculator, because we're going to be using pi, and it's, you know, the numbers are going to be weird and decimally. So, you know, use a calculator, double check your stuff, make sure it's right. So here we go. So I know in this case what the circumference is. I know the circumference is going to be 6 for my circle, because I've chosen that dimension for my rectangle component of my cylinder. So that makes finding the diameter possible. So our formula, circumference equals pi times diameter, or 2 pi r, whatever you prefer. Using that formula, I can find the diameter now. Because I know the circumference is 6, so that's no longer an unknown. And I know pi, 3.14159, whatever you want to go to, 2 decimal points is fine. And times diameter. And the diameter is what we actually don't know. So, going back to our algebra, last unit, right? If I don't want this number here, I can't just subtract it because it's part of a multiplication statement, so I have to divide it. So if I divide by 3.14, or pi, and I divide the other side by 3.14 pi, I'll eliminate the pi, and I'll be left with diameter equals something. So let's plug that in. So 6 divided by, and I'll use the pi button so I get very precise, equals 1.91, let's say. So 1.91, and that is the diameter of my actual circle. So I just drew a random circle. Now if this was for marks, I would take the time to do it right. So if the diameter equals 1.91, I can go ahead and half that to get my radius, equals 0.955, let's say. And then I could use my ruler to mark that out. So since it's slightly less than 1 centimeter, you know, I'm not going to be looking for perfection here, but it should be a close fit. So I could go ahead and find my radius. It's pretty close. And then I could draw my circle. I'm so bad at this. This is why I use a computer. But I could use my compass to make the perfect circle. Okay, or close to it. I'm struggling here. There we go. Okay, so now that circle would belong to this rectangle. Now, of course, you know, for marks, I'm going to use a ruler or grid paper, and I'm going to actually, you know, measure out my 6 and measure out my 3. But by doing this, right, and then replicating this circle underneath, and let's just pretend I did the rest properly, this will actually fold into a perfect circle. Okay? So that is one challenge you might run up against. The other challenge is that you are making your cylinder. Let's say you're building a pipe. Okay, so you're making a sewage pipe going from one building to another, and it has to be, I don't know, 10 meters long. Okay, and now your circle is going to be at this end. So let's kind of draw, you know, so you're making sort of a pipe that looks kind of like that, and you know what you want the diameter. You want the diameter to be 2 meters. Okay. Now the question is how long is this dimension of the rectangular part of the cylinder, right? We know it's going to match the circumference, but we don't know what the circumference is in this story, okay? So if I was drawing my net here, I would, make this 10, and then this is my unknown side. I'm not quite sure how long it would be. I don't even know how long to make the line, but I'm just sort of approximating there. And then my circles are going to be, here and here. So, and we know that this is a 2 meter diameter. So the diameter is 2 meters, the radius would be 1 meter. So now the question is how long is this side? And again, I can't just say, well, it's 6 or something. I can't just make up a number. But it's going to be the same as the circumference. So I'm going to use the old formula again. Circumference equals pi times diameter. And in this story, I don't know the circumference, but I do know pi, and I do know the diameter. Okay, and then I can use my calculator again to go pi times 2, which is our diameter, and I get the circumference is 6.28. That's good enough. Okay, so now I could actually draw my circle properly because, well, I always could, sorry, because I knew the diameter and I knew the radius, so I could set my compass to 1 and make my circle. And now I know that the circumference is 6.28, so that's how long this side would be. Okay? So those are the two challenges you're probably going to run in making your net and solving your problem. So I just want to be clear, you can kind of make up two of the numbers, but the circumference and this dimension of your rectangular portion of your cylinder must match, okay? And I will be checking that. So make sure that's clear. So you could make up the dimensions of the rectangle, like I did up here, which was 6 and 3, but then you must use math to determine the proper diameter and the proper circumference of the circular portion of the cylinder. And same with down here, you can make up the diameter of the circular part of the cylinder, and you can make up how long or tall, whatever, you can make that dimension of your cylinder up, but you must use math to determine the missing dimension. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense and that helps you catch up. Again, if you're a terrible artist like I am, or even just really bad at compasses like I am, use the computer, okay? Doing the same math in the computer, it's just the computer's doing the measurements for you, right? You have to tell it the measurements and then it creates your shapes. So for me, that's a definite easy choice. If you're better at this, then go for it, okay? But you must include in your net all those measurements, okay? Diameter, radius, circumference, and the dimensions of the rectangular portion of the cylinder. All right, good luck.